Yesterday, I closed a 3-part live series that generated $100,363. And in this video, I want to share the 10 lessons that came from that campaign. Because what I've learned from the last 3 weeks is that this is predictable. I'm not special. I've just applied myself and these lessons consistently over time. And my goal with sharing these 10 lessons is that you take them and apply them to your life, because I promise you, if I can do it, you can do it too. And that is my goal with all of my content, is to awaken and inspire you to these kinds of numbers. Now, for a bit of context, that 100,000 came from 17 clients. I spent 14,000 on ads, which was proper edgy for me and a massive stretch. It generated 700 leads. So my ROAS, my return on ad spend, was just under 6, and I had a earnings per lead of $140, which is the main numbers to understand in anything like this. And the lessons I'm about to share with you work, truly work. And to some degree, I'm blown away by the success of this campaign. But on the other side, I'm kind of not, because these lessons have been anchors in my life. They've been principles that I've stood by over the last 4, even 8 years of entrepreneurship and solopreneurship. Now, before I share them, I also want to say, if you stay till the end, I'm going to share one phrase that if you share in any content or workshops, you get immediate buy-in. Now, let's go into the 10 lessons. And what I've learned in my journey of entrepreneurship and being a coach is that there are 3 key gaps in people's lives that keep them from the success they want. And the first gap is a skill gap. So you may hear, wow, made 100,000 in a 3-week campaign and assume I'm an overnight success. But I have been at this for the last 8 years. I've been creating content for 8 years. I have been committed to the process, and I have honored the suck for those 8 years. I've run workshops when no one turned up, workshops with a couple of people turning up. I've ran in-person events with a few showing up. I've run lives where I've completely forgotten what I was talking about, workshops that I was completely forgot what I've talked about. And I mumble my words. I've created content where I felt like I was literally walking through treacle. But in all of that honoring the suck and putting the reps in, I've started to hone my craft. I've started to close that skills gap. I've started to develop a level of mastery with public speaking, with sales, with enrollment, with content creation. Now, I still see myself as a total beginner in this. And that is what allows you to close that skills gap, is applying yourself with total beginner's mindset and truly just honoring the suck. The second gap is a systems gap. And what systems give you is capacity. And there are 2 types of systems: our internal system, our nervous system, our ability to be present in a storm, to hold tension in mayhem, in chaos. And secondly, external systems. And again, I have worked tirelessly at increasing both my internal and external capacity by building co-regulation and building on my capacity of my nervous system, internal system, and also building the capacity of my external systems. So the reason why I can create 17 clients is because I have onboarding systems, I have delivery systems, I have a community that's been refined over the last 3 years that is ready to receive that many clients. The third gap is an identity gap. And the thing is, with an identity gap, when our identity doesn't match the identity of who we want to be and the identity of the person who has what we want to have, that seeps and leaks into the first two. Because when our identities don't match, we end up doing busy work. We end up doing things that don't matter, like tweaking with Canva posts and tweaking with headlines and subheading fonts and all of that. But when you step into your future identity, that version of you would not entertain that busy work. And over the last however many years, 4, 5, even 8 years, I have been constantly upgrading my identity. How I do that is I get clear on my future and I use that vision to determine who I am in the present. I am constantly visualizing and embodying my future self. I can do it in a moment. I could do it in a breath. I know exactly how my future self thinks, feels, and acts. And I'm constantly inviting myself into that version. And I had to do this almost minute to minute over the last 3 weeks, because as I say, spending $1,400 a day on ads was incredibly edgy for me. But I knew my future self wouldn't bat an eyelid at this. I knew that's the level that my future self was already operating at. So in the last 3 weeks, I had to consistently come back to the vision and invite myself into embodying that version of me. The fourth lesson is really on the back of Google's findings of the 0 moment of truth. So they found that our audience, your audience, need to consume 7 hours of content from 11 different touch points and 4 channels before they make a purchasing decision. And I have designed my whole ecosystem, what I call the authority flywheel. And at the end of this, you can watch a whole video on how that works. I've designed my whole system on getting my audience to that 7 hours, 11 touch points for 4 different channels. And I had many, many people go through the Authority Flywheel series, subscribe to my YouTube, go through my newsletter, listen to my podcast. And I knew they were doing it because they were commenting on the podcast. They were asking questions in the YouTubes. They were replying to my newsletter. And that is the power of creating bingeable content. People can go deep, fast. So I took people that I've never met 3 weeks ago into spending $7,000 with me 3 weeks later and investing and committing to the next year inside of my container. Why? Because they consumed so much of my content. I even had a call yesterday with someone who actually got a bonus coaching call, and he said to me, "I trust you implicitly." That's what time with does. It builds trust. And the way I design all of my content, it connects at the level of the heart. It builds emotional resonance. It shifts paradigms. It shifts beliefs by connecting at the level of the hands, and then connects at the level of the head. Connects at the level of the hands by sharing case studies and proof. The fifth lesson is kind of linked to that 7-11-4. But it is an understanding that the more offers you make, the more offers you're allowed to make. See, to get to those 11 touch points may seem intimidating, but when you have systems, you can get there very quickly. So in this Authority Flywheel series, once you signed up to it, you got a thank you page where all the replays were hosted. On that replay page, you had a link to my case studies, you had a link to my WhatsApp group, you had a link to my waitlist page. And when the replays were hosted, that those links were updated. So that was one touch point with multiple different entry points into and deeper into my world. On top of that, they went through my email sequence, which pointed them to various different YouTubes. And within all those YouTubes, I make offers, invited them to my WhatsApp group. I was providing daily content on my WhatsApp group. And with all of with a lot of people that came in and joined my waitlist, I'd message them personally. So with one offer, signing up to my Authority Flywheel series, it allowed me to create multiple offers after this. And this is why this is an exponential strategy. And it's why my business is focused on making offers. When your business is offer driven, you're allowed to make more offers. Because when people give you the permission of their email, of this value exchange, there's an exchange of value that you can continue to make until they say yes or no. And that's our goal with this is, are you in or are you out? Either way, I'm totally fine. I'm going to continue delivering value. And those that step into my world, I'm all in for. So the more offers you make, the more offers you're allowed to make. The sixth lesson is really something I learned from the Diary of a CEO, and that is sweating the small stuff. So in the last 3 weeks, I had moments where I couldn't be bothered to do a lot of the work. I couldn't be bothered to update certain pages. I couldn't be bothered to update certain emails. But so much of success is actually about honoring the boredom and going the extra mile. And when you stack up all these little small incremental improvements, they really stack up over massive changes over time. And that's something I've really embodied over the last few years, is going the extra mile, because so few people are willing to go to the extra mile. Why? Because they are dopamine addicted and addicted to that short-term hit and result. But it's when you build the foundations and you go the extra mile and you make sure that every touch point is optimized and your audience is really cared for each stage, that builds trust, and that trust compounds and compounds and compounds. A big unlock for me this year has been focus. I, like everyone else, especially entrepreneurs, are not short of ideas. And I, in the past, have been fallen prey many times to the shiny object syndrome. And I have to continually battle that part of me that wants the new thing. But in the last year, I have totally committed to my core product, the Elevated Coaching Collective, which is a community of heart-led coaches that help get to 10 to 30K months. And that focus on that core offer has unlocked so much internally and externally with my results. Internally, it's simplified everything. It means that when new ideas come in, if it's not aligned with my single point of focus, I simply put it aside. I put it on my not yet list. In fact, I've committed the next 10 years to the ECC. It's my life's work. And that commitment has created so much freedom internally. But also externally, it's given my audience confidence and safety and trust, because so many people have had their fingers burnt by other coaches. So to hear of someone who's committed to something for 5-10 years, and they feel that, my clients feel that obsession with me. I am totally obsessed with making my community the best in class, world class. And I see time as a point of difference, a competitive advantage, because again, most people are short-sighted, short-term focused, and they're jumping from offer to offer, never building any compounding results. And Naval Ravikant is one of my favorite entrepreneurs to follow. He says all of life's success comes from compounding. But we can only get to that compounding through sustained focus. That sustained focus has also given me such a deep level of understanding of my audience, but also my mechanism and my methodology. So with that focus, I've been able to create, sorry, my daughter's going wild out there. I hope you can't hear her. I've been able to create a visual model that reflects how I help my clients and what I do. That model is called the Authority Flywheel. And by having that model, it has unlocked so much, again, internally and externally. And what I've seen in the last 3 weeks is that your model, your unique framework for success is what I call it, is actually more important than the niche itself. Because your model is what it's what puts you apart from everyone else. It's what cuts you through. It's what stands you apart. And by having that visual representation, it's created for me so much magnetism. It's why in phase 1 of in the ECC, we spend so much time in crafting this mechanism. The 9th lesson is turning up when it doesn't make sense. a mantra that I've had for so much of my life is what you do in a tough day determines what you do in extraordinary days. Now, as I shared at the start, there was many moments in this campaign where I thought I'd overextended myself financially. And there was a part of me that was riddled with fear and riddled with panic. But I had to continually come back to center, continually come back to presence, and continually come back to that quote of what I do in the tough days determines what I do in extraordinary days. And there were many moments in the campaign where I was sending out invites and reaching out to people and I was getting nothing, just ghosted. And I know through having done this so many times now, these are the most important times. And what I'm committed to is service consciousness. And that means inviting people in, calling people forward and speaking to the part of them that is capable of so much more and being totally unattached to the outcome. And that commitment to service, that commitment to turning up when it doesn't matter is what's allowed me to create this level of success. The final thing I will share is a quote from Dan Coe, which has really stayed with me. He says, "Nothing happens, then everything happens in business." And this talks to Naval's quote of all of great life's things comes from compounding. And I've seen it in my personal life, in my business. And it's the reason why time is actually our competitive advantage, because most people are impatient, they're jumping, they're impatient for the result, and they haven't built the internal resilience to really stay in the game. Patience is a competitive advantage. And the way I've built patience is learn to self-regulate, learn to remain present in tension, remain present in chaos, to remain in service and committed to service and unattached to the result. And that's allowed me to be present and consistent with my efforts. What's also allowed me to stay consistent is total clarity around the life I want to create. My business model is simple: create my dream life and help others and share with others how I got there. Really, I am so clear on my vision and the life I want to create. And that pulls me towards it. That pulls me through the moments that I want to give up and I want to run away. So I really hope this has been useful. And coming back to that phrase that if you say this in your content, in your workshops, you'll get immediate buy-in. And that is as simple as, if you're anything like me, it's a banger. And what that does, it just communicates who you are, and people go, yeah, I'm like you. And that's a big reason why I had so much buy-in through this Authority Flywheel series, because people bought into not only the outcome, not only my methodology, but the identity, who they become after working with me. So if this has been useful, go ahead and hit subscribe. I have got so much good value coming, and I'm going to unpack this technically and practically and dive into the more strategic stuff for you as well. Sending you so much love. Have a beautiful rest of your day.